Welcome once again to Breakfast Central. Are you one of those struggling to find your career path as you navigate through life's uncertainties, especially with, of course, choosing what you really want to become? That's a huge question a lot of people ask in their 20s, 30s, maybe even their 40s. And of course, questioning what you need to do to survive. Daily, many youths who graduate from university are faced with taking the bold step of forming a solid career path that leads to success. Africa is the continent with the youngest population worldwide. As of 2021, around 40% of the population was aged between 15 years and younger, compared to a global average of 26%, according to Statista. Now, helping these young Africans develop their career is what we will be talking about. Our guest, Msweli, is an award-winning international speaker, renowned career coach, founder and chief executive officer of Hased Consulting, a Pan-African consulting firm specializing in coaching, human capital management, facilitation, recruitment, and training on the African continent, with, of course, presence here in Nigeria, Rwanda, Namibia, Botswana, and South Africa. Thanks so much for joining us, Fumi. It's good to see you.
It's good to see you. It's great to be here.
Now, there's some, a little bit of confusion, with people deciding whether they are on a career path or they just want to put food on the table. Which of them, do you think people struggle with the most, and how does a person, create a difference?
So I think a lot of us often, when we graduate from university, we're like, let me just get a job. Of course, that's the reality of Africans across the continent. And that starts with your first employment. You possibly just getting work. But that does not actually equate to you building a career. A career is your life's work. It's the legacy you're going to leave. It is a strategic move that you make every single time you choose employment. Why do you work where you work? What is your career strategy? Is it because you're wanting to climb the corporate ladder? Or are you in essence saying, for me, I'm going into corporate to gather some data and intel in order for me to eventually become an entrepreneur? So you really have to be very strategic when building your career as opposed to just looking for employment.
Happiness is something that a lot of people also seek. Like you've said, your very first job, might just be, let's get in the labor market. But at some point, you're going to seek happiness. Is there a possibility or likelihood of, not liking your job, but it's a career path that you've chosen?
Yes, it's very, very possible. That has happened to me. I started my career as an accountant, and I quickly realized it wasn't for me. But the opportunity to be an accountant gave me access into the financial sector, which gave me the data I needed, the networks I needed in order to build my now business. So it's very, very important for you to say, okay, yes, I want to be happy, but in the short term, I'm wanting to be a little bit dissatisfied because of what I'm trying to do and achieve in this particular role. And then in the future, I get to be happy. There's a fantastic theory that the Japanese have come up with called the ikigai. It's the concept that your reason for being and true contentment in your career comes when you get paid, so you're good at what you do, you're able to get remunerated for it, and you have impact. There's something you're doing that's solving a world problem. So where those four converge, what you're good at, what you love, what you get paid to do, and solving a world problem converge, you have your ikigai. And that for me is self-actualization and really saying my career impacts myself as well as others in a way that gives me joy and of course also makes my bank account rather happy.
Absolutely. I have that book. I just haven't read it yet. So I want us to talk about, career coaches now. How much more of career coaching does Africa need, and the young people across the continent, how much more do they need? And also, the continent is faced with these challenges. We're also just getting, away from COVID-19 and all of that. The economy is in a mess. How many, of these things come into play here with people really just trying to survive? Career path will take care of itself, but for now, I really want to survive.
Yes, you need to be able to survive, but I think in the African context, where we anticipate that by the year 2030, we'll have more Africans in Africa than Indians in India or Chinese in China. Meaning with our young population, career coaching is going to be critical. Because what we're doing in career coaches is we say, this is where you are, this is where you're wanting to be. So how can we get you there strategically? What are the sort of networks you need? What sort of qualifications do you need? How do you compete globally? These are all questions the average African needs to ask themselves. Yes, you need to put food on the table now, but you can't be working for food every single day. Yeah. So how do you strategically start planning your career in order for you to, in 5-10 years time, building businesses that create employment, that make you content, and actually really does impact the continent in a positive manner?
What role do parents play?
African parents. So let's be a little bit more specific. I think it's very, very important as parents for us to realize that we don't know what we don't know. you're preparing your children for a world that does not exist. If I said to you 10 years ago, content creation is going to be a job, you would have said, what is that? Influencing is going to be a job. What is that? Data scientists. So you, as parents, you need to say, what are the skills I can give my children, the ability for them to think, the ability for them to leverage resources around them in order for them to be globally competitive. So as a parent, I want you to think, if I put my child in the space where they're having to compete with someone sitting in Kuala Lumpur, someone sitting in Singapore, someone sitting in the Democratic Republic of Congo, can they compete? That is your job. It is not to prescribe you must be a doctor, you must be an engineer, because those jobs probably will not even exist in the future.
Absolutely. So I want us to talk about, maybe a top 4 skills a person must have for growth, for career growth. And also, is it okay, to have a career that isn't necessarily making you the wealthiest person in your community, but it's still a career?
Okay, so I'll start with that one. I think it honestly does depend on you. It is your career. You are the CEO of your career. So you determine whether wealth is going to be your driver, whether impact is going to be your driver. That is up to you.
Yeah.
So it's not a one size fits all. It's not a Chinese dress, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But when it does come to your first question, what are the skills you're going to need? Fortunately for us, the World Economic Forum has done a lot of research on this. And I like to call them the 4 C's. Creativity, yes, creativity is going to be a skill critical for the future. You're going to need communication, the ability to articulate your thoughts in a manner that you can sell to other people. Community, so that's our ability to really grow and get people to buy into what it is that we do and almost, rally around us. And I think this is the premise with which social media has been very, very successful. And of course, critical thinking. Those 4 C's are the skills you're going to need in the future in order for you to remain competitive across the globe.
Something, I think is also very important to ask, there is for a long time always been this, disparity. There's always been this imagination that, men, move in this career and women move in, to a different career. Has there been a gender issue, with regards to choosing a career path that has affected one gender or the other across the continent?
I don't think it's a specific career path, but what we have noticed specifically in the African context is that African women tend to make career decisions based on things that don't currently exist. You're a young 24-year-old and you're already thinking, when I get married, when I have children, so I'm not going to apply for that role because it's going to impact my family then. So I think it's very, very important that as African women, what we start doing is saying, let me make decisions based on what I have on hand now. That's going to force, in essence, corporate to start rethinking, how can we incorporate women more? So by us doing that, it allows us to make decisions for now as opposed to what potentially could happen. And then it really does help us position it a little bit better. And I think that will actually help close that gender gap.
Yeah.
And of course, we're seeing that also from a wage perspective.
Okay, we're not going to leave without talking about you now. So Vumi, Msweli, how long have you been doing this, and what was your main driver for what you currently do?
So I've been running my business for 10 years. I've been in the coaching arena for about 10 years, and we really work with employees. And my driver was, I was a young executive living in the United Kingdom, and I got frustrated because I looked around the room, no one looked like me. I asked for assistance and no one could really support me. I was like, what is this? So it became my mission to build the kind of firm that can support Africans wherever they are in the world and can give them the kind of unique perspective that is very locally relevant, but also making sure that we have that global perspective. So, and we do this in a number of ways. We've got self-coaching tools like our journals, we've got master classes, we have career acceleration programs, we support large organizations across the world, and it really is, I guess, my passion. I guess I get paid to do what I love.
Very interesting. Msweli, she is a very, very fantastic career coach, and, we're excited to have her. So many of these conversations need to be had as Africa moves forward. And of course, as we continue to train and guide the young, vibrant Africa into, the new world.